I hope you're excited because the time has finally come that we're going to really talk about web page design and talking about the homepage that you are going to design for yourself if you're creating a portfolio or for a brand or client. And in this PowerPoint, when I talk about you could be you as the designer. And as a designer, you could be speaking for yourself if you're creating a portfolio, but also if you are speaking for the brand or a client. All right, let's get started. I hope you get a lot of ideas from this video. Okay, to begin with, your homepage needs to always answer the following questions. Who are you? So who is this brand, or who is this person in the portfolio? We need to know a little something about you. And what do you do? So what is this website for? What do you want me to do with it? Are you selling me something? Are you informing me about something? Are you persuading me to hire you? As the user, I want to know these things. And in user-centered design, we are always going to be paying attention to the user's thoughts. And at the top of the user's mind when they land on a website is, how can you help me? Because as a user, I'm not just visiting websites to be nice to brands or to people. I'm visiting them because there's some type of value for me. So this is, what have you done for me, or what will you do for me website. So your homepage is the time when you have to answer these kinds of questions. All right, we are going to look at a few different websites and we'll talk about them. We'll talk about what makes for a good website, what elements do we need to have, and then I'll give a couple examples of websites and what works and what doesn't work. So let's start with this one. And just as we begin, we have a nice hero section here where we have a full screen image. We have an action shot of people going down a zip line in the mountains, and we have a great headline: "Your next adventure awaits." So this is a lovely start to a home page. A couple other things I want you to notice is that there is a call to action button here that's in orange, so we can easily see that. We have another action button here in which you can do a text. It's not as bold, they haven't made it as prominent because they would really like you to see more of the web page before you text them. So it's there if you're already sold on it. But you know what? Let's look a little bit more. We're going to scroll down. If you remember, we want each row to look a little different than the previous. And with this navigation arrow, you see we're heading down, and this is very different. It's this green overlay. Let's find you the perfect activity. And now we're getting into some new rows, and each row looks quite distinctly different. Different colors, different types of filings here. So as we're scrolling down, hopefully they're persuading you more and more. And if they haven't, they're giving you more pictures, they're giving reviews, and giving you some specifics at the footer here. So overall, we're going to find this web page does a lot of good things. Here's another website that we're going to look at, and we'll examine all of these three websites in more detail later, but I'm just showing you what they look like to begin with. All right. When your business needs growth, think Marco. And I'm going to start it going because it's a dynamic site, so it's moving. And so again, we have a great hero section here, nice clear headline. We have a visual image here, and we have call to actions. Everywhere they have an accessibility icon, so if you click this, you can have a website that is optimized for accessibility. We have a row that looks really different than above. We have a third row with building credibility, products in this fourth row, and these are all clickable links that we have here. So great options. You notice here the small writing, they don't really expect you to read, but it's there in case you want to. So here we have 2 columns in this row, distinct. You can click and find out more information. And we're getting close to the bottom with the contact page here. Easy to do. And then as we go down to the bottom, we get to their footer. All right, so a lot of good things that are happening in this one as well. We'll talk more in a little bit about its particular merits and maybe places where it's not as strong. All right, third one we're going to look at is Uber. And in this particular Uber, you'll notice this isn't about ordering an Uber. This Uber website is more about telling people about the company in order to recruit drivers. So that's where we are with this one. And so for the hero section, we have the picture of somebody driving. So this is a good shot as opposed to somebody just smiling into the camera, which might not have a lot of impact. That's just kind of a static headshot. Here, this is somebody who seems to be driving, and they want you to think about being in the driver's seat of an Uber as well. We have a headline, and we have a number of call to actions. And if you happen to have gone into the wrong place and you wanted to order food, there is a tab here where you could, or if you wanted to call for an Uber for a ride, that's there. And so they're helping the user here because they're wanting a user who's looking at this for a job. But if they have a user who happens to stumble here, they want to make it easy for that user to get to where they want to be. All right, so let's look at this entire website. So we have the hero section. We have a row underneath that looks very different. You notice we have columns as well within these rows, and this one's fairly short, brief, but they get everything done they want to get done. Okay, so let us move and let's talk about what a hero section should have. And as we're talking about what hero section should have, these different elements, we'll go back to those three websites and their homepage and see whether or not they're following this well. Okay, so first of all, we should have a hero section on your homepage. In fact, I'll argue that some element of a hero section should be on all of your pages, generally speaking, but it's the most important on your homepage. So your hero section is generally going to include a large image or a video, a headline, a subhead, and some type of call to action button. And right after that hero section, the row that follows the hero, you should have some negative space, and then you want content that looks incredibly different. So you don't want to have that next row to be a similar type of picture or an exact same rectangle filled with the exact same color. We want to make things look different. So some ideas could be a bulleted list, a different call to action button, a different row color. So those would be some possibilities. So let's take a look at our at Marco. And so if you notice in the top left, we have their hero section, and as we scroll down, we have this. It's quite different. So we have this row has 3 different columns, and so this lets us have a very different visual view of what's coming next. It doesn't feel as intimately related to here. We have a new topic here, so that's good. They've done a great job. And we have our travel company here, and of course we've already mentioned these are quite different. So they're following that rule well of a strong hero section and then a row that's dramatically different. Uber, similar. We have our hero section, and now we've changed the color, we've changed the size of the rows, we've changed the way they're laid out. Here we have a picture in a rectangle as opposed to having it be full width. So they've done a good job here. So a couple things to consider as you're creating your homepage, that not only do we need that strong hero image and to have distinctly different row underneath it, but we also want to make sure that the entire page has simplicity, that visual hierarchy, navigability, conventionality, and credibility. So let's talk about all of these things. And this list comes from HubSpot, but I'm going to elaborate on it using my own information and my own examples. All right, so simplicity. Only incorporate what is needed for good user design and good or user experience design and good user interface design. So we're not trying to throw a lot of things onto the homepage. We are only trying to put on there what is going to be useful for our users. So don't overcomplicate things. Don't use all the bells and whistles that are out there. We want to use what works, but let's go to the minimal of what works. When I say minimal, not the idea is that the minimal should be that it works well, not that it's functioning at a 70% or something. We want it to be functioning in the 90 percentile, but if we add extra things in there, it doesn't, and we make it more complicated, that's not helping. So that would take us down to a less effective website. Okay, hopefully you understand what I'm saying here. Design so that people understand what your website is about, have the necessary interfaces to easily engage with your content. We don't want to frustrate people. We want to answer that questions of who you are, what do you do, and how are you going to help that user. So if we go here to our travel agency, what you'll see is we have a great way that they are really making this simple. So they're giving you a very clear kind of challenge here. Let's find you the perfect activity. Get started. There's no question what you can do now that you're going to hit get started. You'll go to a different page and you'll find more information. You also still have that book now button. So if you're already convinced, you can just book, or if you fairly convinced and you just want to ask a couple questions, okay, you can text. You could also go specifically see all the activities there. So they do a good job. This is simple. We have lots of negative space here. I mean, obviously there's an image here, but it's letting the eye rest so it appears as negative space. All right, let's go to our Uber, and what we have here when it comes in terms of simplicity, I think it's probably a little more complicated than they wanted it to be, simply because they are assuming there might be some people who might accidentally land on the wrong page here. And so they want to give them a way to get to the correct page. But overall, they do have a very clear headline with get in the driver's seat and get paid. So you do have a good idea what this is about. We have a primary call to action, sign up to drive, and we also have secondary action, call to action buttons up here with the sign up in the top left corner. And you'll notice there's a tertiary action button, learn more about driving and delivery. This is a link you can click on, but they haven't really made it that noticeable because they're not really expecting you to click on it. So it's there, but they've toned it down. So simple, yes, but probably a little more complicated than they wanted, just because they had to account for people who accidentally make it to that home page. And if we look at Marco, so again, we have a nice simplicity here. We have 3 topics, and you could click on each one. We have arrows that show us you can click on each one, and it's just presenting that way, one bit of information at a time. We also have nice call to action buttons, all sorts of action buttons that we can do, that we can find out more things and kind of navigate as we want to. So simplicity, all 3 of these have done fairly well with simplicity. Now I'm going to show you an overly busy example. So this is what we don't want to do. So let's take a look at it. I think the web designers for this site decided to use every animation that they possibly could. I think their idea was more is more, and even more is more when it comes to web design. I think they're worried that if they don't have all the bells and whistles, they're going to lose your attention. So let's just take a look at it. So this is when you first get here, you'll see that, and now we would then make it to the home page. We have the scrolling images, we have now scrolling fonts. even the image here, you see the arms are coming in and out. Going from row to row, it's doing this, kind of pushing. We have this little graph sign that's moving. And on this one, we have a scrolling side to side, and it changes colors while you're scrolling. Then as we go down, we get another row here. That first one's okay that we just saw, but then now we're going to continue. That rocket went up. Now we had that person with their hands going as they shrugged. This is just too much. So I say we could, if I was designing that site, we could probably take out 80% of that animation, just leave 20, and it would be more effective. And so this is essentially, I say, don't design like this. All right. Not only do we want simplicity, but we also want visual hierarchy. And of course, we've talked extensively about visual hierarchy in other videos, so I think you understand what we're talking about here, but we're paying attention to what will help our user understand the important elements of our website and also enjoy our website. So let's take a look at the visual hierarchy here. So with our travel agency site, you'll notice that they've made some choices. For instance, leave the planning to us, and the planning is in green font. They're highlighting that, and that's a good choice from a visual hierarchy because planning is something that other people don't want to do. So this could be attractive to put this in the hands of professionals, and it's linked to this group in events call to action. And when you think about these two in the same color, you're like, oh my goodness, planning for a group or event, that's a lot of work. Oh, you'll do it? Nice. And so by tying those together with the color, it helps us know that this is that those belong together. Then also down here, you'll notice that we have a fairly small font here, and they're not really expecting you to read this. So they've made it small. It's there if you want to, but they're not really expecting that you'll read it. And so if you really want to learn about them, you'll click on this About Us button, and you'll go to an About page and find out more information. So this is a good use of visual hierarchy to show us what's important and what's not. And also notice with the orange book now, that's always going to gain attention. Orange and yellow and black are great attention getters. That's why if you are driving in the United States and there's a construction zone, you'll see orange, yellow, and black being the major, what they use for signs, because they draw attention so quickly. Okay, let's look at this one and their use of visual hierarchy. I already mentioned we had the primary call to action here, and then we did have the secondary up at the top right, and then our tertiary. But they've used visual hierarchy to let you know what's important. We have the one that's in, the button's in a rectangle, it's black with white font, and this second one, or the tertiary one, is much more subtle. So they've done a good job with visual hierarchy here. And let's go to the next one with Marco. This was about halfway down their page. Again, the smaller print, they're really not expecting you to read this. What they're expecting you to do is very quickly glance and scan the headlines, and you just kind of probably assume that these make sense and these support what they're saying. And if you are super interested in finding out about cutting edge technology, what they mean by that, yeah, you can read some more with it. So they have done a good job overall of making things make sense from this visual hierarchy standpoint, what they expect you to read and what they don't expect you to read. So keep this in mind with your own websites. Important stuff we got to make more prominent and noticeable, and less important, we find ways to minimize it through visual hierarchy. Navigability. Okay, so this is that idea that people should be able to come to your website and the user should be able to easily do what they want to do. They shouldn't have to sit and think about it and think, where do I click to find this or that? that's really frustrating when we have to do that. We want to be able to easily navigate without thinking about it as users. Okay, so keep the structure of your primary navigation simple. And so generally in web page design, I'm going to recommend starting out with a menu, which is your primary navigation. Your menu is going to be at the top of your website. Now, are there other ways to do this? Absolutely. There are lots of other ways to do it. You can have a menu that's on the side. You can also have a menu that is closed until someone clicks on it. These are all choices, and we'll talk about a menu that's closed that you're going to have to that will be more of a fly out when we click on it. But for the most part, I'm going to encourage people to have that top primary navigation menu bar. It's what people expect when they come onto a website. They don't have to think twice about where to find pages if they want to click to a different page. And you're going to want to keep your navigation consistent on every page, each other page that you create. So we want to use the same menu bar on every page unless there's a really compelling reason not to. Consider using some extra call to actions at the middle or the bottom of a page, so the user has a way that they can move to another page other than your primary navigation. So if they've been scrolling and your menu is no longer in their site, that they can just click on a call to action button and go to another page. On a home page, if we can give 2 to 3 other call to actions minimum other than your primary navigation, that would be great. So we have primary navigation, and then we should have 2 to 3 other ways minimum for people to move to other parts of your website. All right, so let's look at some examples, and I'm going to come back to that one. Let's look here. So let's look at Marco. We have this top primary navigation menu bar. And this is very traditionally laid out. Traditional is to have a logo here. And by the way, most logos are going to be connected to an action. So if somebody clicks on your logo, that will take them back to your home page. Then we have the actual menu. Very easy to see what's happening here. And then we have more specific call to actions over here. We have more call to actions here, and you can't see it here, but there's another call to action down here. So lots of call to actions, lots of ways to navigate where you want to go. You're on this site, you're going to have no problem learning more information. And we go to the Uber, and what we have here is very similar, this traditional navigation up here. More specific navigation over here. We have more navigation here. We have a call to action button, and then we have another button here that's just less prominent. Very easy ways to navigate throughout this page. Now let's go back to the travel agency, and you'll notice they are not set up traditionally here, and they have where you'd click here and your menu that you would then click to open up the menu. This is called a hamburger menu. So this is the hamburger icon. It's 3 lines. So this is what we'll call them is the hamburger menu. And so you have to click on it to see what it has to offer. And so in many ways, so this violates what I say I like to do generally in having that top menu bar. Now there are reasons when we do violate what I or others would think is a best practice. So one of the times that we would do this is if you have a demographic that would prefer to have a hamburger menu. And here we'd have to probably look at the age of your target users. And this site is aiming for a slightly younger demographic. And so as I make this video, I am in my 50s, and so when I say younger, I'm talking younger than me. So I'm talking not Generation X audience, not baby boomer audience, not the silent generation audience, not the greatest generation audience. So none of those. Those are my age and older. This is more going after millennials, I would say. And so millennials are quite tech savvy in general, and they understand this hamburger menu and how to use it. Now, frankly, of course, I understand what this is and how to use it, but I tell you, if we brought this website to my mother who's in her 80s, she would not be able to find the menu. She would not understand this, and it would fail. But because I don't think this website's aimed at her generation, it makes it an acceptable choice for their particular audience. So, of course, as with any design principle, as long as you know and understand the design principles and rules and why we do them, and the fact that we want navigation to be very user-friendly, as long as you understand why, and I usually like the top bar because of those reasons. But there are times when we can violate that because it works for our particular audience. Okay, let's go on conventionality. So we want to balance originality, your creative ideas, along with expectations. So there's a few things we need to understand about how users in the United States will generally approach a website. So generally, users in the US will approach a website as if they're reading a book. They will start at the top left corner, they'll focus, and they'll end at the bottom right. And we talked about that in one of the visual hierarchy or Gestalt principle videos. So this idea of that we read in that pattern. So we don't want to violate that. And there's a few things that we can do. So navigation, the top of the page. If you decide to do sidebar navigation, placing it on the left of the page could work. A logo, top left, is very conventional. It's also possible put in the center, and then you could have a home, about, logo, and then maybe contact and frequently asked questions. That's also fairly conventional. Having a clickable logo, so it always brings that visitor back to the home page, that you have links and buttons that will change their color or appearance when they're hovered over. And also, we don't want to have a lot of text, so we don't want to have these imposing blocks of text where people have to read hundreds of words at the same time. We want to keep everything very easy to scan. All right, so let's take a look at these websites. So they've done a good job of kind of this conventionality of that. We have the headline, we have the call to action, very simple, very easy to find, nothing confusing about that. Of course, we've already talked about the menus, not exactly conventional, but they have reasons for that. So that's easy to understand why they've made some of those choices there. And if you did click on their logo, that would take you back to the home page. Here for conventionality, again, it's kind of understandable that we can quickly scan here, see what's important, and these blocks of text, even though I kind of consider this a lot of text, if you look at it, they're all 2 sentences long, so it's not like we have 12 or 15 sentences here. They've broken them up rather than put all of these into one container. They could have put this all in one rectangle and made them go together more, but they've used spacing so they're easier chunks to read, and we want to make sure we do things like that on our website as well. Keep it conventional, what people are expecting. All right, let's talk about the next aspect, credibility. Your homepage needs to establish some type of credibility. If someone visits your homepage and they don't find it credible, they're going to click out. They're going to bounce pretty quickly if they think that your site is not of value. So there's a few things we can do in order to make sure that our site has value. One is we need to be very clear up front. what is it that you're selling? Let's not do a bait and switch where on our homepage we have some type of great sale, get now, and then when somebody clicks on it, it's like, oh, sorry, sold out. Because that's just frustrating, and people are not going to enjoy that. Also, maybe on your homepage, let's say you do have a product that you're offering at a great price, and somebody goes, oh wow, nice to see that's kind of the prices they have on this site. And so then they look at other products, and when they find out everything else is 20 times more expensive than that one product, then that makes them not trust you either. So let's be consistent and authentic on your homepage. You can dedicate some real estate to explaining the value behind what you do so people understand. So you can take a row or a column within that homepage, and it kind of very clearly, but quickly and briefly, concisely explain the value of your brand, your portfolio, your website. Also, establishing a USP, which is a unique selling proposition. What makes you different from other similar products or services? What makes your church's website different from others? What makes your t-shirt company different than others? What makes your portfolio different than others? So we need to find some way to make a statement about what you uniquely bring. All right, so for example, on the Uber page, so they have taken some time in this row to build credibility. Here we have our commitment to your safety. They explain what they're doing very briefly, and then 2 call to actions that you can go to read more information. And then also another bit of credibility is that they're in more than 10,000 cities. So this builds credibility of how widely they are used throughout the world. And so if they're in that many places, that kind of indicates that they're credible. All right. Then on our travel adventure site, we have for credibility, we're seeing that they put reviews here. And reviews are a great way to build credibility if you're building a website for a company that has one. And so you could just read these. And honestly, probably a user might come here and they might just see that they're there and not read them. They're like, oh, reviews, great. And maybe they'll read, if they were interested, they might read 1 or 2. But they're probably not going to scroll and read more. But they might, and it's there if they want to. And so that builds some credibility. Even if you never click on scroll, you might just kind of think subconsciously, oh, they have more than 3 reviews. Great. Maybe that they're reputable. So those are some things that we're going to be thinking about as we're building this. And just to give you an example of, I was working in my on-campus class the other day, and a student brought in a website that was really a beautiful and stunning website, and they had a review section here, and they had 3 reviews. And that looked good. Then we moved to the About page, and they had another row with reviews on the About page, and they were the same 3 reviews. And then we went to the Order page, and they had the same 3 reviews on the Order page. And what happened, because they only had 3 reviews repeated throughout the website, is it did the opposite of building credibility. It actually ended up making you think, oh man, only 3 people have ever liked their products? What's going on? So we have to be careful of this. All right, it is now your turn to start working on your homepage. Good luck. I know your professors cannot wait to see what you create.